What's up, Ann Camp? It's time for another Ann Campaign Civic update. And I'm going to talk to you about really what everybody is talking about right now, which is the Supreme Court's decision in regard to presidential immunity. Now, I'm going to be very clear to say, watch who you listen to on this, because this decision, along with the dissent, was about 120 or so pages. I have no idea how people were coming out immediately, 15 minutes after it came out, with all this commentary and not really having a chance to read through it and reflect on it. And I want to make sure that that's what I did before coming to you with this civic update. Okay, so here I am, and we're about to get into it. As many of you know, former President Trump was on trial for inciting the attack on the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. This was one of his several indictments that he had, okay? During that trial, his attorneys basically argued that he could not be prosecuted, that in fact he was immune from prosecution because he was at time the president and he was acting within his official capacity. Okay, and so they said he couldn't be prosecuted. The lower court disagreed, but when the lower court disagreed on that one piece of the case, it was appealed and it went up now to the Supreme Court. So to be very clear, the Supreme Court was not deciding the case. The Supreme Court was weighing in on this one question. And that one question is, when may a former president be prosecuted for official acts taken during his presidency? That's the one question that they were deciding, not deciding the whole case. All right. Now, they're holding on this, or what the majority, the conclusion that the majority came to was that, number one, a president has no immunity for unofficial acts. So any acts that's not within the capacity of his presidency, that's a private act, he has no immunity. But what everybody's talking about, and for good reason, is that they also said that the president may not be prosecuted for exercising his core constitutional power. He is entitled to at least presumptive immunity from prosecution for his official acts. This is very broad immunity, right? Basically, anything within the scope of his official acts, anything that connects to his constitutional powers, he cannot be prosecuted for. And that can be a lot of different things that could be very dangerous, okay? I think personally that's just too broad, that you could have a president who's in some respect doing an official act that's just completely criminal and that he should not have any type of protection for that. I think they got it wrong, but I'm also going to explain why it's not a simple case either, okay? But before I get to that, let me be very clear. This does not completely let Trump off the hook. Now, if he wins in November, he's going to drop this case because he'll be over the Justice Department and that case will be dropped. But if he doesn't win, he can still be prosecuted for his unofficial acts. During oral arguments, his attorneys basically admitted that some of his actions were private, that some of his actions were unofficial, and he can still be prosecuted for that. Very important to know. But as I said before, this is a complicated matter with complicated case law and complicated implications. So I want to give you a little context to what the Supreme Court was kind of wrestling with. As a president, you have to make a lot of very tough decisions, some really hard decisions that maybe years later you say maybe that was the wrong decision. Well, one of the things that they're wrestling with, and here's the tension, one of the things that they're wrestling with is you don't want a president walking on eggshells as he makes decisions because he's worried about being prosecuted for something after it's all over. You want a president who's confident, who's making decisions, making the decisions he needs to make, not having to worry about something being a small violation here or there and him being, after he gets out of the presidency, him being prosecuted. That's one side of the tension. The other side of the tension is the abuse of that power. Is someone who would use his powers or her powers to do criminal things. Okay, so you have to balance, hey, we know that once you put somebody in the presidency, you're giving them a lot of privileges. You're giving them a lot of power, and that's part of it. But you don't want to give them too much power. And as the holding says, no one is above the law. Some would argue that this actually, in many cases, or too many cases, does place the president above the law. Okay, that's the tension they were dealing with It's not just an easy case that everybody say, oh, obviously this is exactly where they should have landed. It's not that simple. And let me also say this. While I disagree with this court on many things, while I wish it was a little more balanced, and while when it comes to Alito and some other ones, I have some serious problems with this court. I'm going to differ with the left a little bit here because I don't think that this was an arbitrary or capricious decision on behalf of Chief Justice Roberts. Did he get it wrong? In my opinion, yes, it's too broad. But for those who are going so far as to say, basically, he looked at this case and said, how can I get Trump off? I don't think that's what he did. When I look at his other jurisprudence, other decisions, I think he takes our democracy more seriously than that. And if he made the decision, it wasn't just to get Trump off. So one thing you have to understand about Supreme Court decisions is it's never just about that case. It's about the implication. It's about the precedent that's being set. I personally don't think Chief Justice Roberts just said, man, I just want to get Trump off. How can I get the other folks to come along with me? Let's move forward in that way. It may be wrong. I don't think it's that simple. The other things that I would tell Christians is, and I said this a little bit earlier, make sure that you're basing your opinion on this on the principle, on the importance of what this means to democracy. Because what I'm seeing is people really are just going along with what's in their interest as a partisan. And so conservatives are really happy about this. MAGA conservatives are really happy about this issue. Would you feel the same way if Biden were on trial? And also for the folks who lean left, would you be so against this immunity if the shoe were on the other foot and Biden was on trial and the only thing standing between Trump and the presidency were this decision? Would you still be taking the same position? If not, we need to question that and see the partiality in it and be different. But ask yourself that question honestly, because it's not all just about winning this particular race, this particular election. Well, if you like that information and you want more, you got to listen to the Church Politics Podcast with myself and the Right Reverend Christopher Butler. See you next time.